Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting and numismatics, a story that has captured the imagination of collectors, historians, treasure seekers, and even casual hobbyists who never thought a small piece of pocket change could carry a value beyond a few cents. Yet here we are exploring the mystery and allure of the 2004 5-cent coin, a Jefferson nickel, which in certain era varieties has sold for staggering amounts reaching into the millions of dollars, specifically around $2 million, and the reasons behind this astronomical valuation are as intriguing as they are complex, involving minting errors, mistakes that slip past quality control, and the rarity of these flawed coins which elevate them from ordinary pocket change to prized collectibles that can change someone's financial future in an instant. And as we unpack this topic, we will explore not only the history of the 2004 nickel, but also the intricacies of minting processes, the types of errors that can occur, why those errors become so valuable, and the possibilities that make this particular coin so highly sought after by collectors across the globe. So sit back, stay curious, and imagine that what seems like a small insignificant coin rattling at the bottom of a drawer might actually be a hidden treasure worth a fortune. Now, the 2004 5-cent coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint during a very interesting time in U.S. coinage because it was part of the Westward Journey Nickel Series that commemorated the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition, so the Mint was experimenting with new designs on the reverse side of the nickel while keeping Thomas Jefferson's portrait on the obverse. And whenever new designs are introduced, there is always potential for mistakes, ranging from doubled dies, off-center strikes, planchet flaws, die clashes, and even misaligned or rotated dies, each of which can produce a coin that is visually distinct from the millions of others churned out by the Mint. And in the case of the 2004 nickel, the errors that have drawn the most attention include dramatic doubling on the inscriptions, unusual die cracks across Jefferson's face or across the design elements on the reverse, improper alloy mixtures that change the coloration and composition of the coin, and in some cases extreme off-center strikes where only part of the design is visible, all of which transform an otherwise common nickel into a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. So why would anyone pay $2 million for such a coin? Well, the answer lies in the combination of rarity, demand, and the mystique surrounding errors that are both dramatic and difficult to reproduce intentionally. Collectors know that the Mint aims for perfection and consistency. So when a significant mistake escapes into circulation, it represents not only a flaw but also a piece of history, a frozen moment in the long chain of minting that deviated from the norm, and collectors are willing to compete fiercely for ownership of such anomalies because they are by nature finite. Once identified, they cannot be created again, and the odds of finding another one exactly like it are almost non-existent, and this scarcity drives up demand and price, creating the perfect storm for astronomical valuations. Now, with the 2004 nickel, certain error types have been catalogued and studied extensively, such as the doubled die obverse where Jefferson's eye appears doubled, or the words, "In God We Trust," show a ghost-like second impression, and these doubled die varieties are among the most cherished by error collectors because they represent flaws at the die creation stage, meaning every coin struck with that flawed die carries the same distinctive error. But if only a small batch of coins was struck before the die was replaced or destroyed, then the number of surviving specimens might be as few as dozens or even fewer, which in the world of numismatics translates to tremendous rarity. Imagine if only 50 or 100 examples exist and thousands of collectors want one. The bidding wars drive values into the stratosphere. And in one particular instance involving the 2004 nickel, an extraordinary example of doubling combined with other unusual planchet features and pristine condition led to it being valued near the $2 million mark, a jaw-dropping figure that turned heads worldwide, and this sparked conversations about how ordinary change can hide extraordinary value. Now, the mistakes that make such coins valuable are not always visible to the casual eye. Some require magnification, detailed inspection, and comparison against standard examples. For instance, a die clash error occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving traces of the reverse design impressed on the obverse and vice versa. And while minor clashes are somewhat common, Major clashes where Jefferson's bus carries an imprint of reverse elements can be breathtaking to collectors, and when this type of clash appears on a coin with otherwise flawless condition and low population numbers, it can skyrocket in value. Another possibility comes from wrong planchet errors, where a coin is accidentally struck on a blank meant for another denomination, say a dime or a foreign coin planchet. And this type of error is incredibly rare but not unheard of in the mints history. So a 2004p nickel struck on a mis-sized planchet could become an era legend worth hundreds of thousands if not millions, depending on its uniqueness. Add to this the allure of off-metal strikes where the alloy composition differs from the intended copper-nickel blend, and you have yet another pathway to enormous value. And collectors delight in chasing these mysteries because each coin tells a story of human oversight, machine malfunction, or an unpredictable confluence of events that could never be intentionally duplicated. And speaking of stories, every coin with an error represents a piece of narrative, a snapshot of what went wrong during its creation, and these stories are what make collecting such coins exciting, because beyond the intrinsic metal value, beyond the face value, beyond even the visual oddity, lies the thrill of holding a tangible piece of minting history in your hands. Now, one reason the 2004p nickel era varieties have attracted such massive attention is because they emerged during a time when numismatic interest was already peaking due to state quarters and other commemorative issues, so more people were actively examining their change, posting discoveries online, and sparking discussions that amplified awareness of rare varieties. And once the first few valuable errors were reported, the buzz spread like wildfire, encouraging treasure hunters everywhere to check their pocket change, fueling the mystique further, and creating demand that far outstripped supply, and demand plus rarity equals soaring values. So when a specimen surfaced with multiple dramatic errors, pristine condition, and authenticated provenance, its auction price reflected the feverish competition to own a piece of numismatic legend, and thus we arrive at the story of the 2004p 5-cent coin worth $2 million, not because of its metallic content, not because of its design alone, but because of its errors, its uniqueness, its story, and the insatiable desire of collectors to hold in their possession something no one else can replicate. And so as we conclude this exploration, we realize that what makes a coin valuable is not always its intended design, but sometimes the imperfections that slip through the cracks, turning ordinary into extraordinary. And if you're listening today, you might just be inspired to take a closer look at the coins in your own pocket. Because you never know, maybe among them lies a small piece of flawed metal carrying with it the weight of history and the possibility of life-changing value. And that possibility, that chance of finding treasure where none is expected, is what makes the world of coin collecting endlessly fascinating. So next time you encounter a 2004p nickel, look carefully, because while most are worth 5 cents, a rare few might just be worth a fortune beyond your imagination. Welcome back everyone, and thank you for sticking around, because if you thought the 2004p nickel story was wild with its multi-million-dollar price tag due to minting errors and rare mistakes, then you'll be just as fascinated by its successor in the timeline of American coinage, the Liberty 2005p 5 cent, another coin from the Westward Journey Nickel Series, which also became the focus of collectors and treasure hunters because certain examples with extraordinary minting errors have been valued at staggering amounts, reaching as high as $1 million. And once again we find ourselves diving into the fascinating universe where small bits of pocket change carry values large enough to change someone's life forever. And the 2005 Liberty Nickel is particularly interesting because it represented a bold departure in design from the traditional Jefferson portrait that Americans had grown accustomed to since 1938. Instead, we saw a new modernized depiction of Jefferson designed by Joe Fitzgerald that offered a more lifelike forward-facing portrait of the third President of the United States, with the word Liberty inscribed in Jefferson's own handwriting scrawled across the field, giving the coin both historical authenticity and artistic innovation. And on the reverse side, the buffalo design reappeared for the first time in decades, reminiscent of the beloved buffalo nickel of the early 20th century. So this combination of design change and nostalgia already made the 2005 nickel stand out in numismatic history. But as always, when new designs are introduced, the likelihood of minting errors increases, And in the case of the 2005p Liberty nickel, the mistakes that surfaced were nothing short of spectacular, ranging from dramatic doubled dies on Jefferson's forward-facing portrait where the details of his eyes, nose, and lips appear doubled or distorted, to severe die clashes where faint outlines of the reverse bison can be seen ghosting across Jefferson's face, to misaligned planchet strikes where the inscriptions and Liberty's signature are shifted or partially cut off, creating wildly unusual visuals that make collectors' hearts race. And beyond these, there are also cases of wrong planchet strikes, where the coin was mistakenly struck on blanks meant for dimes or foreign coins, creating off-sized oddities that are instantly valuable. Now, what makes the Liberty 2005 P5 cent worth up to $1 million is not just the existence of these errors but the rarity and the condition of specific examples, because while minor doubled dies and die clashes exist in larger numbers, there are only a handful of known coins that combine extreme dramatic doubling, flawless preservation, and authenticated provenance. And when one of those surfaces at auction, the competition among collectors, investors, and museums drives the price higher and higher until it reaches eye-watering figures like $1 million. So imagine holding what looks like a common nickel in your hand, only to discover under magnification that the word Liberty is doubled in Jefferson's own script, or that his facial features look doubled as though he was shifting on the coin. These features make the coin not just a piece of money but a unique work of art created accidentally by the mince machines. And when you layer onto this the fact that 2005 marked a historic design transition, the numismatic value compounds because collectors love transitional issues and the stories behind them. Another fascinating error type on this coin involves the bison reverse, where some examples show dramatic breaks in the die that cause a large crack or cut to appear across the animal's back or hump, creating what has been nicknamed among collectors as the Speared Bison, a term that caught fire in the coin collecting community and made this error variety extremely desirable. And the more dramatic the die break, the more valuable the coin, with pristine examples of the Speared Bison commanding astonishing sums. And when a particularly unique and dramatic strike combined with other features, it became one of the very rare 2005p Liberty nickels valued around $1 million. And just like the 2004 story, the explanation comes back to rarity, condition, and collector demand. Because the mint corrects errors quickly, and once the flawed die is removed, the number of error coins is permanently capped, meaning supply cannot grow but demand can increase endlessly as new collectors learn about the coin, creating a bidding war environment that pushes prices sky high. So once again we see how tiny mistakes at the mint create massive waves in the collecting community, turning what would be 5 cents into a collector's dream worth more than houses, cars, or even entire retirement savings. And what makes the Liberty 2005p story even more engaging is the cultural resonance of Jefferson's forward-facing portrait combined with the return of the buffalo, both symbols of American history. So when error coins emerge, they are not just rare anomalies but also pieces of symbolic art that collectors attach meaning to, amplifying their desirability. And as we reflect on this, we realize that the 2005p Liberty nickel valued at $1 million is more than a coin. It is a reminder that in the small overlooked corners of our lives, in change jars, pockets, and drawers, treasures might be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered, authenticated, and celebrated by a world that still marvels at the beauty of imperfection. And that's the essence of why these era nickels, whether from 2004 or 2005, continue to inspire people to keep searching, keep collecting, and keep hoping for that one life-changing find. And as we move forward from the astonishing Liberty 2005p nickel that has been valued at around $1 million due to its spectacular errors and the romance of Jefferson's handwritten Liberty combined with a bold new portrait, we now turn our attention to the very next release in the Westward Journey Nickel Series, the 2005 Bison Nickel, officially known as the American Bison Reverse, which has become legendary in its own right because of one error so distinctive and so dramatic that it has earned its own nickname in the world of numismatics, the famous Speared Bison variety. And this coin, in certain pristine conditions and with unmistakable die gouges running straight through the bison's body, has reached valuations that defy belief, with some of the highest grade examples commanding six figures and whispers of specimens potentially crossing into the $1 million realm, making it one of the most iconic modern-era nickels of all time. And the story here is as thrilling as ever because the mint in 2005 sought to honor America's frontier history by resurrecting the majestic bison image reminiscent of James O. Fraser's beloved Buffalo nickel, and the design was met with enthusiasm. But somewhere along the way during die preparation or maintenance, a deep vertical gouge developed across one of the reverse dies, and when coins were struck using that flawed die, the resulting impression appeared as though a spear or harpoon had been thrust through the bison's body, creating a dramatic visual that immediately caught collectors' eyes, and soon word spread of the speared bison error. And just as had happened with the double-die Lincoln cents of 1955 or the Wisconsin extra leaf quarters of 2004, demand exploded as people across the country began checking their pocket change hoping to find one. And what makes the speared bison so special is that unlike minor die cracks or small doubling that require magnification to appreciate, this error can be seen with the naked eye, plain as day, giving it a dramatic impact and a sense of rarity that is both visually striking and numismatically significant. And in the highest mint state grades, free of wear and authenticated by top-tier grading services, the speared bison commands astronomical premiums. And when an especially flawless example surfaces, the bidding becomes intense, driving the value higher and higher. And while not every specimen reaches $1 million, the possibility of a unique perfect strike combined with cultural significance has led some to speculate that $1 million sale is inevitable. And so in the lore of American coinage, the 2005 Bison nickel stands proudly as an era coin that bridges history, artistry, and human fascination with flaws, turning a humble 5-cent piece into a symbol of discovery. And just when you think the story ends there, the Westward Journey series carried on, with the 2006 return to Monticello design restoring Jefferson's classic profile, but in a more modernized style. And once again era coins began to surface, including misaligned strikes, rotated dies, doubled inscriptions, and wrong planchet strikes, each one contributing to the broader narrative that every time the mint experiments with new designs or transitions dies, opportunities arise for mistakes to slip through, and those mistakes are what fuel the treasure-hunting spirit among collectors. Because the possibility that a simple nickel could hold life-changing value is irresistible, and the 2006 issues, while not quite as legendary as the speared bison, have nonetheless delivered rare double-die varieties and off-center strikes that in the right conditions can command tens of thousands of dollars. And some predict that in future decades, as populations dwindle and demand grows, even these will climb into the 6- or 7-figure range, reminding us that patience and preservation are as important as discovery itself. But it doesn't stop there, because moving into 2007, 2008, and beyond, Jefferson nickels continued to be struck with updated designs, and era varieties have continued to slip into circulation, each one telling a story of the mint's relentless pursuit of perfection and the inevitable reality that machines and humans together sometimes leave behind accidents that for collectors are not flaws but treasures, each one unique, each one carrying a story. And it is these stories that make the hobby so endlessly fascinating. Because whether it's the $2 million 2004 P nickel, the $1 million Liberty 2005 P, or the legendary speared bison of the same year, we see the same pattern emerge: rarity plus demand equals extraordinary value. And this is why collectors never stop searching, why coin shows buzz with excitement, why auction houses brim with anticipation, and why ordinary people across the country still pour out jars of change onto the kitchen table and sift through nickels by the hundreds, hoping to see that telltale doubling, that dramatic die break, that unmistakable clash that transforms a 5-cent coin into a fortune. And as the years roll forward, these stories only grow richer, because every discovery adds another chapter to the great narrative of American numismatics. And so we can say without hesitation that the Liberty 2005 P and the Bison 2005, alongside their brothers from 2004 and 2006, have cemented their place in history as coins that prove the most valuable things can sometimes come in the smallest, most unexpected packages. And now we leap forward several years beyond the excitement of the 2004 and 2005 nickel stories, beyond the dramatic Liberty Face, beyond the legendary Speared Bison, and beyond the return to Monticello of 2006, and we land in the year 2012, a year that at first glance seems quiet in the world of Jefferson nickels, but in fact hides one of the most surprising and valuable modern era varieties. The 2012 D5-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint, a coin that in its rarest and most extraordinary form has achieved valuations approaching $500,000, and this is a perfect example of how even in an era of advanced technology and improved quality control, mistakes still happen at the US Mint, and when those mistakes create errors that are visually distinct, extremely rare, and well preserved, the results can be breathtaking. So let's unravel the mystery of the 2012 D nickel, which on its surface is just another modern Jefferson nickel, featuring the classic forward-facing Jefferson obverse and the return of the Monticello design on the reverse, a design that collectors know well and which for most people seems utterly ordinary. But hidden among the millions of coins struck in Denver were a very small number of rare specimens that broke through the barrier of quality checks and became instant rarities. And these errors include some of the most prized types in numismatics. Dramatic double-die obverse where Jefferson's eye, nose, or inscriptions appear doubled under magnification, rotated die errors where the reverse Monticello is twisted at odd angles in relation to the obverse, and perhaps most spectacular of all, off-metal strikes where the coin was accidentally struck on a blank intended for a different denomination, most notably a planchet meant for a foreign coin or a US dime, producing a Jefferson nickel that is undersized, thinner, or of the wrong metal composition, instantly catching the eye of any experienced collector, and it is precisely this type of wrong planchet error that has led to one of the most valuable 2012 D nickels ever known, a specimen authenticated and preserved in stunning mint state condition that was struck on a planchet of the wrong alloy, giving it a silvery hue distinct from the standard copper nickel-clad alloy of regular nickels. And when such a coin is authenticated by grading agencies, the combination of rarity, error type, and preservation leads to staggering auction values, in this case rising close to $500,000, and the beauty of this story is that the 2012 D nickel reminds us that even in the modern day when the mint produces billions of coins with computer-assisted precision, the human and mechanical factors at play still leave room for anomalies, and those anomalies, when rare enough, become treasures, because collectors know that for every billion flawless coins, a handful of flawed ones exist, and those handful are the ones that survive to tell stories and inspire treasure hunts. And let's not forget the cultural significance of Jefferson and Monticello, because these symbols of American history add to the weight of the story, giving context and deeper meaning to the errors, turning them into more than accidents but rather chapters in the long saga of U.S. coinage. And as with earlier valuable nickels, condition is everything, because even if an error exists, if it is worn, damaged, or corroded, its value may be diminished, but when a coin survives in mint state or proof-like condition, the rarity is multiplied and the competition among collectors becomes fierce, driving prices into the hundreds of thousands and beyond. And so the 2012 D5-cent coin has carved its place in modern numismatic lore as a $500,000 marvel, a testament to the fact that even in the most modern minting era treasures can be born out of mistakes. And it continues to fuel the passion of collectors everywhere who search rolls, bags, and circulation coins hoping against hope to stumble upon one of these rarities. Because just as with the $2 million 2004 P, the $1 million Liberty 2005 P, and the legendary Speared Bison of the same year, the 2012 D nickel proves again that the smallest errors can carry the largest rewards, and this endless possibility is what keeps the fire of coin collecting alive, reminding us all that value is not just about metal content or face value, but about rarity, story, and the thrill of discovery. And carrying the story forward from the astonishing 2012 D nickel that stunned collectors with its rare wrong planchet and double die errors valued near $500,000, we move deeper into the modern age of coinage, where one might assume that the mint, with its sophisticated machinery and enhanced quality control, had all but eliminated the possibility of spectacular mistakes slipping into circulation. Yet history shows us time and again that perfection is an ideal, not a reality, and even in the most technologically advanced periods the occasional error escapes, creating coins that rise to legendary status. And in the years that followed 2012 we continue to see examples of Jefferson nickels that broke the mold, commanding immense value in the numismatic marketplace, most notably certain issues from 2014, 2015, and even as recent as 2020, each with their own unique stories of errors and rarity, beginning with the 2014 D. Jefferson nickel where collectors identified strikingly dramatic off-center errors, some as extreme as 70% off-center leaving only a crescent of Jefferson's portrait visible, paired with partial inscriptions, and these kinds of errors when preserved in mint state condition are instantly valuable, sometimes crossing into the six-figure range at auction, because such extreme off-center strikes are rare for nickels of this period. And when authenticated they represent a once-in-a-lifetime collectible. Then moving into 2015 we find a fascinating class of double-die errors, especially on the obverse where Jefferson's forward-facing portrait shows shadowed features and the inscriptions of "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" appear doubled, and though minor doubling is not always highly valued, when the doubling is dramatic and visible to the naked eye, collectors go wild, pushing values upward, with some of the best examples commanding hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in 2016, another incredible anomaly occurred in the form of misstruck Jefferson nickels that landed on dime planchets, creating underweight and undersized nickels that appear almost like freak hybrids, and these wrong planchet strikes are especially valuable because they represent a breakdown in the blank feeding process at the mint, a process normally guarded against with absolute precision, and when these coins surface they cause bidding wars because the oddity is so striking. And then as we march closer to the present day we cannot overlook the remarkable 2020 P. Jefferson nickel where a small but dramatic batch of coins emerged showing striking die cracks across Jefferson's eye and cheek, producing what collectors nicknamed the Scarface nickel, and nicknamed varieties always become cultural icons within the hobby, just like the Speared Bison, because the nickname itself sparks conversation, excitement, and demand, and with only a limited number of well-struck examples certified. The Scarface, Jefferson quickly became a star of modern error collecting, with certain flawless mint-state specimens appraised into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and when you stitch these stories together, from the $2 million 2004 P to the $1 million Liberty 2005 P, the Speared Bison, the 2012 D $500,000 Marvel, and now into the dramatic modern eras of 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2020. You begin to see a continuous narrative that proves beyond doubt that the U.S. Mint, despite its best efforts, continues to create treasures by accident. Treasures that escape into circulation and wait to be discovered by sharp-eyed collectors, and this ongoing possibility is what fuels the excitement, because no matter how modern or ordinary a coin may appear, the chance remains that a hidden rarity lies among them. And as more people learn about these stories, the demand grows, ensuring that the few surviving error specimens will only rise in value. Perhaps with future auctions breaking past today's records and setting new benchmarks in numismatic history. And so the saga of Jefferson nickels continues, each year offering a new chapter, each era coin becoming a new legend, and the thrill of searching remaining as alive today as it was generations ago, when collectors first marveled at double-die Lincolns or the 1937 three-legged buffalo, for in the end it is not just about money, it is about the joy of discovery, the magic of imperfection, and the eternal hope that the next coin in your hand could be the one worth a fortune. And as our journey winds into the year 2015 we encounter yet another astonishing example in the long line of Jefferson nickels that have transcended their face value and entered the realm of priceless treasures, this time with the 2015 P5-cent coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint, a coin which in certain rare and dramatic era varieties has reached values around $500,000. And the story of this coin once again proves that even in the modern minting era, where machines are calibrated to produce billions of nearly flawless pieces of currency, extraordinary mistakes still manage to escape, and those mistakes, when rare enough and dramatic enough, ignite the imaginations of collectors everywhere. So let us examine the 2015p nickel, a coin featuring the now familiar forward-facing Jefferson portrait on the obverse and the stately Monticello on the reverse. An issue that most people handle daily without a second thought, yet within its production runs certain anomalies occurred that transformed a handful of specimens into legends, chief among them some of the most fascinating double-die obverse of the modern age, where the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and even Jefferson's own facial features appear distinctly doubled under magnification, and in some spectacular cases visible even to the naked eye, giving the coin an eerie shadowed appearance, as if Jefferson himself were etched twice into the metal. And when examples like this are authenticated in pristine mint state condition, the value skyrockets, because not only is dramatic doubling inherently rare, but the Philadelphia Mint in 2015 produced an enormous number of nickels, meaning that the odds of finding one in circulation were like needles in a haystack, and when only a handful survive in high-grade condition, the scarcity drives demand to a fever pitch. But that is not all, because the 2015p also saw occurrences of misaligned die strikes, where the reverse Monticello is rotated at odd degrees relative to the obverse, creating visually stunning specimens that defy the expected alignment of U.S. coinage. And as collectors know, rotated dies are among the most exciting modern errors because they are easily spotted and undeniably dramatic, and in one especially rare case, a 2015p nickel combined doubling with a rotated die strike. An anomaly so unusual that its auction value climbed toward $500,000, shocking even seasoned numismatists. And then there are the off-metal strikes, another category of error that adds to the lore of the 2015p, where coins were accidentally struck on dime planchets or blanks of the wrong alloy, producing undersized or oddly toned nickels that stand apart instantly from ordinary circulation, and because these errors occur in extremely low numbers, they are coveted, often selling for tens of thousands, but with unique examples climbing much higher. So when we combine all of these possibilities, dramatic doubling, rotated dies, and off-metal strikes, we see how the 2015p 5-cent coin earned its place as a $500,000 marvel, a coin that represents the unpredictable magic of error collecting, where something as small as a doubled inscription can turn everyday change into life-changing wealth. And what makes this story even more compelling is the timing. Because by 2015, collectors had already been conditioned by the stories of the 2004p $2 million nickel, the $1 million Liberty 2005p, the legendary Speared Bison, and the rare 2012D error, so interest in modern nickels was already running high. And when news of dramatic 2015p errors surfaced, the demand surged instantly, with collectors, dealers, and treasure hunters scouring rolls of bank-wrapped nickels in search of one, igniting a frenzy that continues today. And this is the enduring truth of the hobby, that every time a spectacular error is discovered, it breathes new life into coin collecting, inspiring new generations to search, to learn, and to hope, because the possibility of holding $500,000 in the palm of your hand in the form of a nickel is irresistible, and the 2015p stands as a testament to that enduring dream, proving once again that no matter how advanced our minting technology becomes, perfection remains elusive and imperfection remains priceless. And as we carry our story forward into 2016, the tale of Jefferson nickels producing staggering rarities continues. For the 2016 issues, particularly those struck at Philadelphia, produced a handful of mistakes so unusual that they elevated the value of certain examples into the hundreds of thousands, with the rarest specimens being spoken of as approaching the $500,000 range. And while on the surface the 2016 nickel looks no different from the common pocket change featuring the now standard forward-facing Jefferson portrait and the Monticello reverse, within this ordinary design lies the possibility of extraordinary anomalies. And what makes 2016 so compelling is that this was a year of very high production numbers, billions of coins flowing out of the U.S. Mint, and whenever the output is that massive, the chance for errors to slip into circulation, though small compared to the total, still results in enough spectacular survivors to excite the entire numismatic community. And Among the 2016 P. Jefferson nickels, the most dramatic errors that drew headlines included major off-center strikes, some so extreme that half of Jefferson's face was missing while the rim and inscriptions were partially cut away, giving the coin a surreal half-finished look, and collectors know that the more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the piece, especially if the date remains visible, because that preserves its identity and historical context. And then there were die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly impressions of Monticello faintly superimposed across Jefferson's face, or traces of Jefferson's bust haunting the reverse fields, errors that create a one-of-a-kind appearance on every struck coin, and the boldest examples of such die clashes from 2016 are already considered modern classics, commanding auction values in the tens of thousands. And beyond that, we also find wrong planchet errors where nickels were struck on blanks intended for other denominations, particularly dime planchets, producing underweight and undersized Jefferson nickels that instantly catch the eye. And these spectacular wrong planchet strikes are exceedingly rare, often appearing once in many millions of coins, and when found in mint state condition authenticated by grading services, they can sell for jaw-dropping amounts, pushing closer and closer to $500,000 in the most extraordinary cases. And what truly adds to the mystique of the 2016 P nickel is the discovery of rotated die strikes, where the reverse Monticello is turned anywhere from 30 to 180 degrees in relation to the obverse, a visual oddity that shocks anyone familiar with the normal alignment of U.S. coinage. And rotated dies are prized because they are easily visible, requiring no magnification, making them instantly dramatic and appealing to collectors. And when one such rotated die error was discovered on a pristine 2016 nickel and authenticated, the competition to own it drove its value into six-figure territory, with speculation that unique examples could one day fetch $500,000. So once again we see the familiar formula of rarity, dramatic presentation, pristine preservation, and feverish collector demand transforming a 5-cent coin into a life-changing treasure. And it is remarkable that by 2016, over a decade after the Westward Journey Series first reignited public interest in nickels, these coins were still producing astonishing rarities, keeping collectors engaged and inspiring countless people to keep searching their change, hoping to strike gold. And so the saga continued, with the 2016 Jefferson nickel writing its own chapter in the great story of modern numismatics, a chapter filled with dramatic errors, $500,000 marvels, and the unshakable reminder that imperfection in coinage is not a flaw but a gift that transforms ordinary money into extraordinary history.